Welcome to this first lesson in our beginner's jazz course. Let's start off by getting you to play some jazz chords. Take a look at this G minor 7th chord. Place your second finger on the 6th string, the bottom E string, at the 3rd fret, and then your ring finger on the 4th string, 3rd string and 2nd string, all at the 3rd fret as well. It may be easier to put that finger down first and then add the second finger afterwards. Try it both ways around and see which suits you best. Meanwhile, with the other hand, place your thumb on the 6th string, your index finger on the 4th string, middle finger on the 3rd string, and ring finger on the 2nd string. And then pluck all 4 strings in one action, like this. Try to keep the action light and relaxed. And in particular, try to minimise the movement of the hand so it's less like this and more like this. This action is best created by moving both the thumb and all 3 fingers into the palm of your hand, like this. Now, it's quite likely that your first attempts may sound a bit less like this, and perhaps more like this. And to fix that, we need to return our attention to the fretting hand. Remember, to get a nice clean sound, we want to get these strings pressed firmly against the metal frets. It's the contact between string and fret that makes the clean sound. So our finger has to press just hard enough to achieve a firm contact. You may find, particularly with this 3rd finger, that rotating the finger onto the bony edge of the finger helps get a better contact. So instead of sort of flat like that, rotate the finger around so that your nail is pointing more in this direction, and that helps use the sort of bonier edge of the finger rather than the softer front edge. Have different sizes and shapes of finger, so I'd encourage you to experiment to find the best approach to suit you. And don't worry if, in spite of your best efforts, you're still not getting a perfect sound to your chords right away. With practice, your fingers will both strengthen and harden, and this all of its own will ensure that your chords will sound better gradually over time. So that's step 1, simply plucking as clean sounding a chord as you can. Now, jazz progressions are mostly made up of groups of short sequences of chords, typically 2, 3 or 4 chords, used together over and over again. So learning these basic building block sequences is a very important foundational step in learning to play jazz guitar. So let's add a new chord. We'll follow our G minor 7th chord with a C 9th chord. how nicely those two chords go together. So starting from the G minor 7th chord that we've just been playing, to change to the C ninth, we move the second finger up a string to the 5th string, still at the 3rd fret. Then we add the first finger here at the 4th string, 2nd fret, and then the 3rd finger on the 3rd string, 3rd fret, and the pinky on the 2nd string, also at the 3rd fret. If you're fairly new to playing the guitar, you may find that using the pinky on the 2nd string here is actually quite difficult. In that case, for the time being, try using this alternative. So instead of using the pinky to hold down that 2nd string, simply use the 3rd finger to hold both those strings down, both the 3rd and the 2nd string, by folding it over like that. Ultimately, I'd advise using both these fingerings, but for the time being it makes sense to start with using whichever one of the two you find easiest. Once you've learnt this chord change, practice jumping from one chord shape to the other, just playing one beat on each chord, like this. Once you have that change going smoothly, try playing it with 2 beats per chord, like this. And once you're happy with that, 4 beats per chord, like this. Notice that I separate each beat out with a little squeezing and relaxing action of the fretting hand. It's important to spot that the fingers never leave the strings. It's not, rather the strings are just relaxed enough to allow them to come off the metal frets, and that's what kills the sound, stops it neatly. This has the effect of muting the sound of the chord and giving your rhythm playing more rhythmic definition. You can hear the difference. If I play without the muting, and then with it, once you've got that up to a reasonable speed and feel ready to move on, let's add one more chord. This is an F6 chord. Place your first finger on the 6th string, the bottom string, at the 1st fret. Then your second finger on the 3rd string at the 2nd fret. You may need to just relax and drop your wrist and elbow to get that in position. Then add your ring finger, third finger, on the D string, the fourth string, at the 3rd fret. And finally the pinky on the 2nd string, also at the 3rd fret. For many people, I realise this F6 chord shape will prove too much of a stretch the first time they attempt it. But this time I'm going to encourage you to stick with the same shape. But I'm going to show you a valuable exercise that you can use with any chord that when you first try it you find is simply too much of a stretch for you. This exercise uses what I call the torture rack principle.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition!
You may not have realised that there's a natural torture rack built into every guitar. Take a look at the layout of the frets on the fretboard and maybe you'll see what I mean. This is how we can use it. So we take any chord shape that we find difficult to play and play it as far up the fretboard as we sort of comfortably can. So in this case I'm going to take our F6 shape and play it right up here with my first finger at the 12th fret. That's the one with the double dots. Add the other fingers for the shape, making sure that my fingers are nicely behind the frets in each case, and pressing firmly enough to get a good sound. I then relax my hand, move it down a fret, and again take a bit of time to adjust the fingers so they're nice and in good position behind the frets, getting a good sound. Relax, slide down, adjust, relax, slide down, adjust, and so on, gradually going down one fret at a time, taking every precaution to keep the sound clean, good positioning of the fingers behind the frets. Almost without realising it, we arrive at the 1st fret there and rather surprisingly find that we're fingering that chord okay, because the evil torture rack has done its work and stretched our fingers gradually. Once you're happy enough that you've got these 3 chords under your belt, try playing them in this sequence. The 4/4 time signature at the beginning of the bar tells you that we're playing 4 beats to each bar. At the moment, we'll simply pluck once for each beat. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Means pluck 4 times on the G minor 7th, 4 times on the C 9th, 4 times on the F 6th, and another 4 times on the F 6th. The emphasis here is not to play quickly, but to try to play smoothly. Almost inevitably, to begin with, there'll be a little interruption in your timing as you shift from one chord shape to the next. Maybe something like this. exercise should be repeated several minutes at a time, as often as needed to reduce this interruption of rhythmic flow. This is a process we call making the fretting hand slave to the picking hand. So we need to work from this state of affairs towards this one. And along the way, at some point, you'll suddenly undergo a mental shift that goes something like this. Instead of holding the chord down with your fretting hand and then hitting it with your picking hand, you will instead work the other way round. You'll think in terms of establishing a rhythm with your picking hand, then superimposing chord shapes on the rhythm with your fretting hand, like this. Transition from hold chord and hit rhythm to hold rhythm and hit the chord changes takes varying amounts of time for different guitar players. But if you make this the principal aim of this exercise, you'll be off to a great start and you'll be building a foundation that will stand you in good stead for any style of guitar playing. From the toolbox to the right of the screen, if you're watching this on the Secret GuitarTeacher website, you'll be able to download a printout of this exercise. As well as showing you the sequence, you will see the chord diagrams. Notice that we haven't given the full name of these chords. Rather, we've simply labelled them as chord types: minor, 7th, 9th and 6th. This is because these are all what we call movable chords. In order to take full advantage of the flexibility that movable chord shapes allow, you'll need to take account of the position of the root note in each chord shape. This is shown on these diagrams by the red circles with the letter R for root in them. So for the G minor 7th chord, the root note is this one, the G note on the bottom string. What that means is that when I play this minor 7th chord type here, we've got a G minor 7th. If I then take the same chord type shape down a couple of frets, I've moved the root note from G down through G flat to F. That means that this chord is F minor 7th. So, on our chord diagrams, you have the little red circle marking where in the shape the root note is located. And for the time being, because at this early stage I don't expect everyone to know all their notes on the fretboard, I've been really kind on the printout and given you a little diagram to help you locate the 3 root notes needed for this exercise. This way of representing chords is designed to help you soon become independent of the need to constantly be looking chords up in chord books or online. And instead, you'll soon learn to create your own chords as you need them, based on a firm understanding of the underlying principles involved. Okay, so that's about it for this lesson. Do put in some practice time on that exercise. And meantime, there's no reason why you shouldn't go straight on to the next lesson, where we'll get you started on an exercise to help your lead playing. So, see you in the next lesson.